Next, we will move on to our next engagement portion. Dr. Ross Tsai will be our moderator. Welcome, Ross. You'll have the next 25 minutes. Ross, are you here?
Thank you. Yes, I just unmuted. Thank you, everyone, and certainly very honored today to join this distinguished panel of community leaders as well as our legislators to honor the tremendous contribution of Asian Pacific leaders in our community. Each of our upcoming panelists has done some tremendous contributions, and they do so in a very quiet and humble way. So I am honored to be with them. And today, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started right away. We're going to start with Professor Zhang Xiaoyan. If you wouldn't mind, Zhang Xiaoyan, professor, is a distinguished author in the space of economics and social work. Professor, if you wouldn't mind, get us started in terms of understanding the broader context of representation. Where are we as part of the American population?
Thank you. So glad to be an honor to be invited to this forum, inspired by the story we just heard from Minnesota. And by the way, my major is in sociology, so just want to make a correction, not social work. But anyway, to compare U.S., China, and culture, Western, Eastern has been my work, and I've been observing the Asian American communities, of course, advocating for AAPI communities. And today, I just want to take the opportunity to share some of my observations. And I think the one thing I wanted to point out, as a minority group in the society, as we continue to improve, try to achieve our status, improve our situation, is very important to have a correct positioning. We need to know where we are in the overall society and how do we advocate for ourselves based on where we are. So I just want to take this little chart here, looking at this 2020 census. You can see right now, American is a changing, demographically is a changing society, and it's going to move into a society without a majority race in probably next 2 decades. So here's where we are. We have multiple identities in this country. We're obviously a part of American. We're Americans. We all come here for the same purpose, to find better life. And then we're minorities, and the minority in this country is continuing increasing. And this past that, this last census have demonstrated that. And we're also Asian Americans, but of course we're also Chinese Americans. But altogether, Chinese American 540, 5.4 million people, it's just about 1.7%. So we also need to know where we are with this. So almost like we're kind of climbing this ladder, right? We're step by step go into this society. So next slide, please. So the point here is the representation matters. This is what I observed over time. We are overrepresented in high-tech labor force and educational achievement. Everybody knows, I just went to Silicon Valley last week. 30–40% of workforce there are Asian Americans, right? Mainly Indian, Chinese, but also others. But we're underrepresented in corporate leadership, political and judicial arena, media and entertainment industries. So what's the difference? Well, you notice what we underrepresent are really the decision-making process. We're not in the process, right? We're not in that position. So we're like, so if we don't change that, we always will be whoever make decision, we just follow. We just, we're good in finding out the best scholarship, best schools to get ourselves individually ahead. We're making our average median income, of course, even higher than white. We know that. So we know how to take advantage of situation once it presents. That's good. But on the other side, we need to increase our representation in these areas to become part of a decision-making process. I think that's the real challenge for all of us. And we can only get there by active civic engagement, not waiting for mercy from others. Because in democracy, you fight for your right. Nobody will give to you. So in that sense, I really feel it is worse to be ignored than to be discriminated.
Mhm.
Because you even will discriminate, you'll still be pay attention. People still want to know you. But on the other side, if you be ignored, you'll be out. You're out of picture. So what looking forward? I do see hope and inspiration. One story I think I shared with many people, I think most of you already know. If it's not because immigration reform 1965, we wouldn't be here, including myself, all of us. Okay, but we all know that representation matters. That's because Heron Kwang Youliang was the only Asian senator at the time. And when they tried to pass this, there was a lot of senators and congressmen against that. See, the American immigrant used to be white, from Europe. Now you open the door to all the colored people, especially from Asians and South America. It will change the color of this country. That was a big concern, big debate. What did President Johnson went to? Of course, the only representation of Asian senators. And he went to talk to all the senators and the congressmen and the president to say, no, you don't have to worry about that, because most Asians, they have their culture, they have a tradition, they're not going to flood it in this country, okay? And this only opened the door, shows to the Pacific, Americans, the greatest country in the world, embracing the world. Of course, later it's history. We know 50 years later, the last 50 years, 70% plus people come to this country, immigrant or colored people, and mainly from Asia. That's not a bad thing. It's just because of misjudgment at time by the congressman and the senator, because diversity is a strength for this country. The past 50 years, this country has developed tremendously, and because immigrant, we made a contribution. But imagine at a time, if we didn't have that voice, that one voice out of 100, what would be the difference today? Representation matters. That's the hope and inspiration to me. And then Andrew Yang, of course, Michelle Wu, we all know. One is one for the president, and the other one, Michelle Wu, won the mayor of Boston. Gave us first generation immigrant great hope and set examples for future generations. That's where we say hope. Chinese Americans, regardless where they come from, today become a community of common interest. We have to bond together and fighting for our position in this society. Just last week, I was in West Coast in Silicon Valley and attend one very unique API coalition, their first meeting in California. Basically, they invited all the API elected officials from the 5 counties around the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley. What an inspiration to see all those people from all walks of life and running for, they come from school board all the way to the city mayors and the state representatives all over the place, but it's all local. But that's where you see. But do you know when after that, I talked to people there, what's the percentage of Asian population there? They're running from 20% to 60%. They can see why population change matters and make a difference. I see that coming. Let's envision the future when AAPI community achieves the representation in proportion to its population. I think that should be our fundamental interest, our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for this powerful context for today's conversation, Professor Zhang. And it's such an important reminder of the power of numbers and the data that informs the significance of the opportunity and the challenge that we face. Next, I'd like to invite Wang Chang. Mr. Wang is an attorney and professor of law, a member of the Council on Asia Pacific Minnesotans that Sia mentioned earlier, a great member of our community. Wang Chang, welcome to this conversation. And to begin with, I'd love for you to discuss a little bit of some of the work that you personally have been directly engaged in the context of what Zhang Xiaoyan just talked about, of how do we get involved in the decision-making process.
Thank you, Ross. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be on this panel. And thank you and Donglin and Chen, everybody have do a tremendous work behind scenes to put this event together. I know I will be brief because I think we are running behind time. So in the past few years, I've been involved in some community work and civic engagement The first thank for our brilliant executive director, Sia, on the Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans, and she was very articulate to brief you about our mission and our main function as the state agency to serve as a bridge between the ethnic minority communities, AAPI communities, and the state government, in particular Governor Walz's office and the state legislatures. We have 4 brilliant staff members led by Sia. We have 11 community representatives representing 11 ethnic minority communities, and we have 4 legislative members on the board. I feel extremely privileged and humbled to represent the Chinese heritage on this board. The board have many events and work to do every year. I just highlight a few. If we go to the next slides. And last month, we held the Asian Pacific Islander Day at the state capitol. Governor Walz, Senator Tina Smith, Speaker Melissa Haldeman all attended. We have all the different ethnic minority community came together to celebrate the tremendous contribution Asian Pacific community has made to the United States and to the great state of Minnesota. Last year, when the Asian Asian hate crime were on the rise, the council, along with many leaders of the local community, organized a big rally at the state capitol. And so on the right side of the slides, you will see some picture from that event. Before 2020 election, the council also invited state government officials, Secretary of State Stephen Simon, and our Director of Elections of State Minnesota, David Maeda, and I hosted a workshop with those state government officials to introduce the state voting process and encourage everybody come out to vote. Mm-hmm. So this is just a very brief highlights of what we do on the council. The council feel extremely privileged to be able to work our local community leaders, including many of you, to better serve our community and to make sure our voice are heard by the legislators and the state government. We go to the next slides. I was appointed by former Governor Mark Dayton to be on the Diversity Council. We drafted Minnesota State Civic Engagement Plan in 2017. So in the past few years, I've been increasingly encouraged by my interaction and friendship with local other ethnic minority group leaders. So earlier this year, my office, Kingsfield Law Office, and Think Tank Hawaii, a nonprofit organization based in Honolulu, Hawaii, led by a former military judge, we started a new talk show program, A Nation of Immigrants. In the past few months, we invited the first Chinese American judge, Judge Tony Leung, the executive director, Sia, on the council, our director of election, David Maeda, the associate director of China Center at the University of Minnesota, Haiyan Wang, our vice chair of the council, Saraswati Singh, who is running for Hennepin County attorney, and a Korean American immigration attorney, Weber. In the coming days, I again thank you, Roz, for agreeing to be our distinguished guest this summer. I look forward to interview you, and we will also interview the second generation Ukrainian American, for the 15th president of George Washington University. We'll also interview our Bhutanese council member on the board. We'll interview Austrian law professor, Italian artist. So in summary, I think it's, as Professor Zhang Xiaoyan, very clearly stated, we are part of the minority group. We are part of this diversity group. So it's important for us to be active, to be visible, and because also try to understand our fellow Americans, and not only the Caucasian Americans, but also any part of the American experiment. Now we are the part of the American experiment. Our identity, our cultural identity is Chinese American. The American life is a process of learning. So I came to this country 22 years ago, study American art, later American law. And I feel extremely privileged and fortunate to be part of this American experiment, because we look at, in the past 20 years, we thought that the modernity and the prosperity will save us from medieval barbarity and cruelty. And looking at what's happening all over the world, in Europe, in Asia, and in Middle East, I think our confidence level have significantly be weakened.
Yeah. So I am so enamored by the body of work that you've done, and thank you for sharing your books, Wang Chang. In the interest of time, I just want to point out that there's some really educational materials that Wang Chang has published. So if we can advance the slides, I just want to make sure that the audience pay attention to these really valuable resources that we have.
Yeah, the previous slide. There are two books.
Yes.
They're relevant here.
And several others as well. So thank you for all that you've done.
No problem. Thank you so much, Ross.
Yes. Now, really inspirational examples of how we can get involved in the decision-making process. Now, I'd like to take it to the national level with our next two panelists, with SK Lo as well as Kai-Ying Yang. SK is a personal inspiration for me as well, a local member of our business community who's now taking a leadership role on a national scale. So SK, I'd love for you to share some of the work that you have done on a national basis, especially with the Asian American Unity Coalition, the AAUC organization that you are leading, as well as some of the things that you have learned through collaborating with all of the other Asian organizations in your work on the national stage. Welcome, SK.
Thank you, Ross. I actually do not have as many slides prepared as the other two guests. And I also want to mention that Xiaoyan Zhang has been also a major part of AAUC. He was one of our board member and also executive committee member, have led a couple of our National Civic Leadership Forum as well. So AAUC is really not an idea born by me, but I'm just the carrier of that vision, kind of forced into that situation. And what I like to share is that, believing in the concept that just Chinese American or other minority group by themselves is not sufficient to move the needles. So a lot of people at that time when I got involved has believed that we need a coalition of all Asian Americans that would give us a much better representation. So with that kind of goal and leadership, so we kind of called together some of the leaders around the country to form an organization. And how do we build trust, across people that you never know and never met before? It's a very difficult task, especially they only know of you. So we started out with a conference in Alaska, of all places. Everyone questioned, why do we start in Alaska? But I just say that Alaska is the frontier, and what we're doing is a frontier work. So those who are diehard would want to come. They spend a whole day traveling, but they did show up, and we did have, kind of the first step in that process. And we spent a lot of time and whole year trying to iron out what kind of constitution and bylaw this organization would follow. that we don't have any particular ethnic group dominance, but we want to share that power. So representation is important to us. So we have make sure that all different ethnic group that are members will be able to be represented on the board. So that's one of the things. And we also want to have some kind of a guideline, not to have one ethnic group dominating. So there is also some other guidelines that we try to follow. Anyway, we did in a very short span of about 3 years, starting, incorporated in 2019 to now. We have done a lot of kind of groundbreaking works. We inherited the program called National Civic Leadership Forum. By the way, I want to put a plug in for that organization and that work for this year. We're going to have after 2 years of virtual conferences, we think it is time that we need to meet together, and I want to invite everyone on this forum to come to all places, Las Vegas. So please enjoy your time with us as well as Las Vegas. And the time is September 11, which is not a very good day to start that kind of conference. September 11 to 13. So
Thank
in
you.
Las Vegas. Yeah. So
thank you for
that's
that
all I have.
And I think that's a very exciting concept of really bringing organizations forward to develop leadership around this common goal. Thank you for that, and so much more to discover around this important work. But Kai-Ying, thank you for joining us today. You are now from being a member from our Hmong community locally to now serving on President Joe Biden's Advisory Committee for Asian Americans. I would love for you to spend a couple of minutes to share with the community here on the work that is that you're doing as part of that advisory committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chai, and thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be among so many of you who are leaders in your community and in the Minnesota community. I want to remind all of us that this is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And for centuries, and the theme of this year is Building Legacy Together, Our Community's Journey of Strength and Resilience. And for centuries, Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders have shaped and strengthened the fabric of our nation. Yet many AA and HPI communities continue to face barriers to prosperity and safety, including xenophobic violence, as well as the disproportionate health and economic impacts of COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic. And so on this theme, I want to say that I am building on the legacies of the millions of Asian Americans who came before all of us, right? All of us may be relatively newer to this country, but Chinese, Japanese, and the Filipinos have built this nation. And I want to say that we're not alone in this. And this is why what SK was talking about, working in collaboration, is so important. I wanted to just say that I am a member of the Hmong community. We are one of the most dynamic and vibrant communities here in the United States. Many of us elders still trace our history to southern China, and many still consider China our motherland. Elders especially believe that spiritually, when we die, our souls return to China. And so for this reason, I believe that all of you are my relatives. And so I don't see a big difference between all of us at all, is that we come from the same heritage. So I wanted to just quickly put that into context as well too. And I want to say that in the United States, Hmong people represent about, our population is 327,000 strong, with the largest population in California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And in Minnesota, we are the second largest population in the United States, but over 80,000 of us are concentrated in the urban areas, which is very different from any other diaspora. I wanted to quickly just say a couple of things, and then I go into the commission on AAPI and NHI. First, I want to say that back in the 1980s, we were very similar to you. We had a lot of community-based organizations across the nation, about 300,000, we call mutual assistance associations. In the state of Minnesota, we probably have about 30 MAAs or more, because all of us were needing the direct services because we didn't speak English. We had a lot of health and economic issues. And so we needed those organizations. So we did not intentionally pay a lot of attention to shaping systems and being politically engaged. Since then, a lot has changed, right? We are able to speak English better now. There is a younger generation of young leaders. And we were especially inspired by Senator Mi Mo, who was the first Hmong in Minnesota to announce that she would run for a Senate. And so because of her, I think even though there were many of us who were already voting, we were inspired by her boldness and courage to actually engage in political, the political arena. And so I want to say that because of this, I do encourage all of us to not only look inwardly, but we need to work externally, right? And so for this reason, even when we look at data, 80% of all the people who are U.S. citizens in the Hmong community, 80% actually shows up to the voting poll. That's a really important and powerful data that we need to considerably lift up. And I don't know the data for Chinese American, but something that we have to start talking about. And so I don't see us as communities of needs, but actually a community of power and assets, right?
Absolutely. In the interest of time, I just find that 80% participation so incredibly inspiring, and we all have work to do to help activate all of us. In the interest of time, Ka-ying, there is so much I want to learn about your work. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, and I want to bring our conversation back to the local, to what we can do individually here. And I want to close our panel conversation with Dr. Chen Zhongyu, who is leading our founding this Association of Minnesota Chinese Physicians. They have done some tremendous amount of work for our community, especially through the pandemic. So I want to turn the conversation to Dr. Chen to share with us some of the important work that this organization has done literally in our own neighborhood. Welcome, Dr. Chen.
Thank you, Roz, and thank you for all the fellow panelists. I really enjoyed your very encouraging stories. I'm talking about the local Chinese Physician Association. In fact, today, supposed to be Dr. Wang Caigao, who is the president, to come over here, but he's on call. So he assigned this job to me. So I think I just want to tell you, I think it's amazing that to be a volunteer. I think we started out the organization in about 20 years ago when there was a need in the community, because there is a population that is kind of underserved, who include people coming from China, family members of students and scholars who do not have insurance, or maybe as underinsured, and they have a language barrier, and they're not familiar with the healthcare establishment over here in the country. So the Chinese physicians, licensed Chinese physicians over here, are in a unique position to help them overcome the difficulties. So that's how we started out. And then we also embrace the traditional Chinese medicine and licensed acupuncturists over here too, because not only the Chinese and Asian communities actually have an interest in this, but actually the local American people are interested in it. In fact, our Saturday volunteer clinic, many of the Chinese traditional medicine clinic patients, they actually are the local Americans. So I think that's we specifically have a vice president position reserved for the traditional Chinese medicine, and currently Lily Tun, who has been for many years vice president, has done a great job in doing that. I think another thing is that being volunteer, we also meet new friends. Many of the friends I made throughout these years through the AMCP membership and the AMCP activities. So that's really a wonderful experience. And then also I think being volunteers, it also enriches our own experience. I think I personally become a better person through volunteering. And I can tell you a story. One of our long-term volunteer in the Saturday volunteer clinic is Xia Li, who has been a volunteer for almost 20 years. I don't know how many endless Saturdays,
Yeah.
just like she's always there. And she told me she doesn't drive on highway. She says, so long as the clinic is somewhere that she can drive locally, she will be there. It's
That
an
is an
amazing story.
incredible.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
incredible.
those kind of things really makes a big difference. I think I feel I learned so much just through volunteering.
Dr. Chen, thank you so much for highlighting your volunteers. I talked to you earlier, and I know I was told that you would never talk about yourself. So sure enough that you're directing all the spotlight to all the volunteers. And I love your message around how we all become a better person by giving to our community. So in the interest of time, as I mentioned in the beginning, there is so much we want to learn from each person. Every single one of you have done so much behind the scenes and up front. I love the sentiment from the beginning that in a democracy, neglect is worse than prejudice, that if we're not involved in the decision-making process, we are giving up our responsibility in contributing to the democracy. So Professor Zhang, thank you for providing the context for the importance of us engaging in the decision-making process. And Professor Wang Chang, thank you for sharing the important work that you're doing both on a local and national basis. And certainly SK and Kai-Ying, such great inspiration for what you personally have lifted from your local involvement to the national stage. The idea that AAPI or community members exhibit strength and resilience, this is the theme that we can all embrace. And thank you, Dr. Chen, to really spotlight the important work of, admittedly well-to-do physicians who are giving to our community with such great passion and persistence. Every single one of you offer inspirations for all of us. It is Nelson Mandela who said that it is in your hands to create a better world for all who live together in this space. So it is on every single one of us. And as you have shown us that every contribution counts, everyone can make a difference, big or small, national or local, we can all learn from you. Thank you very much. I turn the time back to Zhou Chen.
Thank you very much, Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross, for that wonderful job anchoring that session. All I want to say is thank you to all our panelists for the important work that you do. We may not always pay attention or even understand everything that you're doing, but thank you for all you do to make a better AAPI community.